Example 5 of the one-to-one and inverse functions lab. We have the following graph. For example 5, we want to decide if the function is one-to-one or not. If possible, graph the inverse function. Now, if a function is one-to-one, what that means is that for each x value, it has one and only one y value. Or another way of putting it is that it has, for every y value, it has one and only one x value. So if we look back to this graph, an easy way to determine that each y value has one and only one x value is by the horizontal line test. So if you draw an imaginary horizontal line throughout this entire graph, the function should only connect once. So if we pass through a horizontal line, it connects once. Pass through a horizontal line, it connects once. So for every y value, it has one and only one x value. So this passes the horizontal line test, which means this function is one-to-one. If a function is one-to-one, then it has an inverse function. So we can say that it is one-to-one. So it is one-to-one. Now we want to find the inverse function and then graph it. So what we're going to do first is we're going to look at this graph, and we see that it has some pointed out points for us. And we're going to record those points. So for the original graph, we'll name it F for now. We have the x and the y values. So looking back at the graph, you can see for the first x value where the first point is, we have an x of 0 and a y of -3. So we have x is 0 and y is -3. For this point, we have about 0.75 for our x value and 0 for our y value. So we'll go 0.75 and 0. And then for this point here, we have x is 1 and y is 1. So 1, 1. And for this last point, we have x is 2 and y is 5. So we have 2 and 5. And that's the function that we have. Now we want to find the inverse of it. So all we have to do, and the way we write an inverse is to the -1, such as that. So we have our x and y values of our inverse function. All we need to do for this is to switch the x and y values. So for the x value for our inverse function, it's going to be the y value of our original function. So for this pair right here, 0 and -3, the x is going to be the y, the 0 here, and the y value of this one is going to be the x here. So this is going to be -3. See how that switches? And we're going to go down and switch the x and y values of each of these. So this one will be 0, this will be 0.75. These ones are the same, so it's going to be 1 and 1. This will be 5 and 2. And then we need to graph this. And if we graph these points of this inverse, we find that this is what it looks like. So it's also a line.